Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. Welcome to the Grey Market Blast. Woo! It is Thursday, the 18th of September, all day.
Get
You
out of
join me.
here. It's not
Honestly, for a
a
full
lie.
24 hours. I promise, 24 hours, it will be the 18th. You join myself and Miss Loudmouth, Angie Setzer, for where Angie will, as always, be providing us with a rapid roundup of the latest pricing flows and market moving news in agricultural markets. But before she does, and I hope you're all sitting comfortably, I'll get the legals out of the way. Nothing discussed on the Spaces session to constitute trading or investment advice, yada, 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 or infers any endorsement by myself, the glorious, the gorgeous goddess of grain herself, Angie Setzer, and of course, PIQ. How are you, my love?
I am super.
Thanks
It
for
is
asking.
Thursday. Yeah, it's like, it's always nice when you feel like yesterday felt like a Thursday to me. So now that it is actually Thursday, I feel
so,
grounded. I
so
feel
you're
more.
basically, you're playing 4D chess with the days to
Yeah,
yourself.
that's just it. Like I can handle it being Thursday when I thought it was Thursday all day yesterday, I guess. I get 2 Fridays. Woo! Anyway.
Whee!
So yeah, hey, welcome. It's Thursday. Export sales report, just real quick. It's not part of my bullet points, but it's our show. I'll do what I want.
Yeah, right.
They were pretty solid. Core numbers were good again. Just kind of at the higher end of expectations on that side of things. We got a flash sale to, Mexico here shortly after the export sales report came out. Bean sales were solid. I was trying to pull up all of the info, but I'll get that later. So you don't need to know the details. It's just we saw solid numbers in bean and corn. Wheat has slowed down. And so that'll be something people say like, oh God, yeah, see how bad it is. We've slowed way down on wheat. It's such a bad sign. Girl, we always slow down on wheat this time of year. Wheat is a bastard at the elevator when it's harvest time. You don't, speaking from experience, you don't want to deal with wheat when you're dealing, you're already a-holes and elbows, trying to get beans and corn off. You're stuck with, problems in space and things like that. And so to see a slowdown this time of year is more, seasonally, and the fact that a wheat merchandiser, I don't care. I'm on vacation. You know what I mean? Like if you're a wheat
Yeah.
person, last half September, October, November, no one calls you. They're busy. And so to see the wheat numbers slow down, don't let anyone convince you that that's a horrible sign or an indication of things to come or whatever, because we remain competitively priced into the global market. We will see a continuation of strong demand, especially from our regular customers. Like we've actually seen, some of the increase in hard red wheat, which is what's leading the way when it comes to exports. It's been some, I'm not going to call them non-traditional customers, but there's been some folks that kind of have popped up that were like, oh, wait, where did they come from? And so yeah, we've been ahead of pace to see wheat slow down. Should not be a surprise. But corn sales remained on track pretty solidly. Bean sales were decent. But still waiting for that, our buddies China to show up
China.
on that side. China. And so speaking of, I am making myself hungry whenever I talk about chip technology because that's just the way I roll. But we did see this morning, an announcement, and I want to ask your opinion more than I'm going to
Oh
kind of
God.
assert my
Oh God.
opinion. And I don't want to have to say it, but you saw Hawaii? How do I say it? You guys said it this morning and I was like,
Huawei.
what?
Huawei.
Huawei? Oh, I don't know. I can't do that. I sound way smarter in print than I do actually verbally, and that's okay. But so you got China's main chip company, came out today, and we're not talking Frito-Lay, came out today and said, hey, you guys, I actually can, produce a chip that's on par with NVIDIA's.
Yeah.
And so you've got to love the timing. Like, you've just got,
Well,
like, this is
this is
beautiful. It's
it,
like a
right?
freaking play.
I'm almost the thing is we've been saying the same thing for I swear it's months, but it might be years for all I know. The time is just a concept for me. It's an abstract
Right?
concept since we've
Yeah.
been doing this show. But yeah, it seems like Nvidia have just got to kind of give up on all this because well, the language at least we're getting from China is that one, you're not allowed to use Nvidia chips, but Nvidia is still selling to Singapore, and Singapore only using 1% of those, to where the other 99% goes. I think we all know. But yeah, all this has been going on, and there's been lots of back and forward about trying to get Nvidia sold into China. Nvidia have turned around and said, well, actually, we're just going to make all our assessments that we don't sell anything there.
Yes.
But then out of all of this, Huawei have come on and said,
Huawei.
said, have come and said, you know what, we don't need your stinking chips. We've
Yeah,
got
we
our
don't
own
want your
domestic chips.
chips. Yeah, we've
Um,
made our own and they have better computing,
I did see some headlines crossing the wires yesterday, I think it was, where basically a domestic China touting a domestic lithography machine. I'm butchering that pronunciation, but
lithography. That sounds fun. Isn't that like a
basically,
lithograph?
yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to go for. Yeah, the machine like that makes the chips. Apparently, they've got some
Oh, it
big
makes the
advanced.
chips. I was thinking you were
Yeah.
talking about, I was thinking of like cursed. Anyway, I'll shut up now
Oh, okay,
before I
but
embarrass
basically, so what
myself.
one of the friction points has been basically the best machines in the world to make these are actually Dutch to make the chips on
Really?
the yeah, and there's huge like export controls on the parts, etc., etc. Um,
Interesting.
and
There's
the
two
whole
things I hate in the world. People intolerant of other people's culture and the
and
Dutch.
the Dutch, yeah,
It's an Austin
yeah,
Powers
baby.
quote before someone sends
Um,
me a mean email. But anyway, so the Dutch
yeah,
have
so
it.
so apparently, if the Chinese have got this way of producing their own, then things could open up, but we'll see. Yeah, it's one to keep an eye on.
It's going to
Again,
be interesting because
it's one
like,
of those things that it doesn't really matter to our markets until it really does matter. So yeah,
yeah, I mean, that's the thing right now. Like, to me, I feel like and I've said this over and over again, and maybe I'm wrong in this assessment, and I'll admit it when we get to the end. I'll be like, whoa, like Chris Farley when he falls down the hill. I don't know what the hell happened. But I thought it was kind of like, all right, we want your chips, we want access, we want all of this, but must be we drug our feet so long we've given them the opportunity to just take them and make their own or something. I don't know. And I don't want to sound like I'm all cynical. But it'll be interesting to
but you
see,
are.
I can't help it. I am the most like cynical optimist you'll ever meet. Honestly, I don't even know how to describe it, but it is what I am. And so we'll see, obviously we have the conversation with Trump and Xi tomorrow. We've kind of worked our way through the TikTok thing. What happens? Like, do we see them open up the door and start making some purchases? I'm still of the mindset that a lot of these purchases that they own that are, quote unquote bought out of Brazil for October shipment will end up being arbed. To me, it makes sense. Like, you've got cheaper beans in the US. If we can, all the government has to do in China is be like, okay, no more tariffs. And the US beans are $1 cheaper than Brazil's, and all of a sudden your crush margins improve, yada, yada, yada. So I guess we'll
Yeah.
see what happens. But, so big updates, like lots of developments, and all of them are, like I said, it's like watching a play. Like, it was written.
Yes.
And if you are paying attention to some of it, you can really see the nuances and some of these other
Yes.
things. And what's most interesting though is no one's talking about how bad the situation in China is really anymore. You've got one of the best tech rallies going on in 4 years. Their government's talking about helping to, support the private governments that have debt. There's a few other things. They are talking about really trimming down on their sow population and a couple other things that aren't super positive. So it's an ebb and a flow. But yeah, we'll be watching China news. And of course, what the hell, the conversation's going to bring about, for mañana. Okay, so Intel's taking off. I was trying to see like if there was something that we needed to add on that, but it's not. Over yonder way to the Black Sea, I really think, in commodities, more so in grains right now, we are really sleeping on, what is going on in Ukraine and what is
Right.
going
Yeah.
on in Russia. The biggest thing right now that I think a lot of folks are kind of just now paying attention to, what you're seeing is that Ukraine, I think this is part of the whole entire, I think they're being supported in this endeavor, let's say. They are really working to kind of become more, direct with their strikes. And so you're seeing them hit, the Karishi oil facility. Like, you've got all of these different oil facilities that are getting hit. You're starting to see that there are actual, fuel shortages happening in Russia. We saw Putin say a couple weeks ago, like, we'll use coal. Well, you can't use coal to, fund have your front line with their tanks and trucks and things. I don't know, but it's really one of those deals where you're seeing them hit really important infrastructure in Russia. They hit an oil port in the north that's now, kind of being, held back on what they're able to ship. You're seeing, just a lot of targeting of infrastructure, rail infrastructure in particular, rail bridges and things like that. And so I do think that you are starting to see, and a lot of people I think are, and I don't want to say misdirected because that's unfair because we really don't know. But, there's a lot of conversation of, oh, well, the Russian crop's big. It's just not making its way into the market. And I'm not sure that's necessarily the case, simply because I don't know if it can make its way into the market at this point in time. I don't know if they have the ability to export it. And when it comes down to it, if you were a grain buyer, would you want to buy wheat? If US wheat and Russian wheat were comparatively priced for January shipment, where would you buy? I would
You
buy
tell me.
US wheat.
Yeah, of
Right?
course you
Like, I would
would.
make sure I was buying wheat and you could say, oh, with the trade war, that's basically put to bed except for China. Let's
Yeah,
call a
yeah,
spade a
yeah.
spade here. No one
Well,
out
and
here is
also,
going to,
let's be absolutely clear on this as well, that, it was, the reason we're talking about Nvidia now is because China are ditching the antitrust cases against big tech,
yes,
US big tech, which we know Trump hates antitrust cases against big tech. It's one of the reasons why he's got it in for the EU. So China, one of their classic from China, backing down without looking to be seen as fully backing down. They've
yes.
dropped the antitrust cases against big tech, and they're now focusing on Nvidia. But they've already said that they're not buying Nvidia chips anyway. There
Well,
you
and the
go. So
NVIDIA thing is because they did something with the purchase in 2020 that they didn't follow
exactly.
through on what they were supposed to. And really when it comes down to it, it's a fine. Like
Exactly. It's
with,
like me. It's basically going. Do you know what? I'm off the booze this week, but what I'm not telling people is actually there's no booze around this week.
it sounds like a personal thing that I've maybe heard before from my friend Ryan. But anyway, not really. You've never told me you're off the booze this week.
Okay, slightly more believable than that,
Right,
maybe.
exactly, yeah. So, I think that's the biggest thing we have to pay attention to. You're seeing Poland and Ukraine, work together as well with some drone technology and some other things. And so how Russia reacts to that will be very, very interesting. We're talking about our 19th round of sanctions. This time Trump's trying to push more in the way of tariffs. And so I feel like I've watched, like it's Bullwinkle this time for sure or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, maybe on the 19th package of sanctions, but it'll work. But, we'll be seeing exactly how this all plays out and all these other things. But, if you think and I said this earlier today on Twitter, if you think that the situation between the two right now, to me, you have the greatest risk of disruption of grain flow since the beginning of the invasion. Really, at this point.
Yeah.
And you've already seen it to a certain extent because, Russian exports are down in a big way. Ukraine's been really slow in their exporting. And again, like I said, everyone's like, oh, it's because of the farmers not selling. Well, the farmer has to sell. They don't have money. Like they have to sell. Either they're not selling because they're not planning to produce again and they're just keeping the commodity and that's what they're doing because there is something fishy. And I do think that you're seeing a disruption to grain flow already. It'll just be a question of whether that if we continue to see signs of it or if everyone else in the industry is right and it's just all chilling in silo bags waiting to get dumped at some arbitrary point in the future, like a 500-pound gorilla in the room. I guess we'll see. Over yonder way, I think I've said that now twice, so forgive
Yeah.
me. Apparently that's just how I feel today. We're Little House on the Prairieing it on today over here. But on the, harvest report side of things, I'm going to try to, make it as, unbiased. I don't want anyone to could say that there's some bias in this by any means, because there are some numbers that are good. There are some yields that have come in that have been surprising. Northern Illinois, parts of Iowa. There's been a few that have come in that 280, 290. I think someone posted something yesterday where someone was above 300, which feels maybe a little stretchy, but it is what it is. But really one of the things that I'm watching the most is like just here, Marshall County, Iowa, 2 fields that died from rust went 160 and 210. That'd be 50 to 70 bushel less than last year. Another field went 225. That's 10 less than last year. 3 fields were unsprayed. And so there is a huge difference right now, in what was sprayed with fungicide and what wasn't. But even in some places that were, like this Lee County, Iowa, so very, very south, just on by Missouri down that way. Corn went 247. Same field last year was 272. It was sprayed. 50 acres of corn. This is Lee County, 235, down 30 bushel. Let me go find another one. I'm trying to find a good one right now so no one accuses me. Missouri looks pretty good. Finished first 150. This is Howard County, Missouri. Still running 22 to 24% moisture, 270 bushel to the acre. Unbelievable
Oh.
yields. So there is, you've got Missouri out there. There are parts of Nebraska that folks are saying are super good. We've seen some really good stuff coming out of Northern Illinois. Sounds like Minnesota's pretty good. The Dakotas are, I think, delayed. At least my customer customers out there are not, they're hoping to start soon, but I don't think they've begun just yet. And then as we move into the Eastern Corn Belt, Indiana's working on beans. Beans have been really good initially. And so it'll be interesting to see as they move into the later planted, dates and some of these other things, how they carry forward. But I would say at this point, and I've been doing this for a minute. I've had plenty of early season yield reports in my inbox throughout the years. And this one definitely, the carpet match and the curtains, it doesn't feel as though she is. And maybe we'll see, we'll see.
Angie.
I'm sorry, but I am going to tell you that I think she's lying to us. And so I don't know. We'll see what happens, as we get to the end. But, the good part, I'm using air quotes, you can't see that. The good part is the weather looks relatively, open. There'll be some chances of rain here, there, and everywhere over the next week or so, but temperatures are going to stay warm. We should be able to get the bulk of this stuff off and in the bin and have a better assessment of what all is going on here in another handful of weeks. And so the good news is we won't have to wait until the middle of October, end of October, middle of November at this rate. It'll be done pretty quick. We'll have an idea. So I think that'll do her for our Thursday.
Wonderful. Well, Angie, thank you as always. Absolute rock star. Listeners, thank you also, as usual, for tuning in. We really do appreciate you. Whatever you are doing, stay safe, keep it tight, and we will see you all tomorrow. Much love.
Have a good one, guys.